The journey plunges deeper, drawing you into a space where the boundaries between life and death, hope and despair, are blurred beyond recognition. Imagine the silence after the crucifixion, a silence so profound it feels like the world itself. Here's holding its breath. The story you thought you knew is only the surface. Beneath it lies a current of mystery, longing, and the universal ache for meaning. In the darkness of those 3 days, something extraordinary is unfolding. The tomb is not just a resting place, it is a threshold, a gateway to realms unseen. Ancient voices whisper of a descent, not into punishment, but into the very heart of human suffering and longing. Jesus, the figure at the center of this cosmic drama, does not disappear into oblivion. Instead, he steps into the depths, carrying with him the hopes and fears of all who have ever wondered what lies beyond the veil. Imagine the underworld not as a place of fire and torment, but as a shadowed realm where souls wait, longing for light. Here the boundaries are thin, and the air is thick with questions. What happens after we die? Is there hope for those who have gone before? Can anyone truly break the chains of fear and finality that bind us all? The ancient texts, some hidden, some forbidden, speak of this journey. They tell of a cosmic jailbreak, a daring rescue mission led by one who refuses to accept the finality of death. Jesus descends not as a captive but as a liberator. He moves through the darkness with purpose, seeking out the lost, the forgotten, the broken. His presence stirs the shadows, awakening hope where there was only despair. The descent is not without danger. Every step deeper into the underworld is a confrontation with the powers that profit from despair, with the voices that whisper, "You are alone, you are forgotten, there is no way out." But the journey is also a revelation. In the darkness, truths are uncovered that cannot be seen in the light. The chains that bind are not made of iron but of fear, regret, and the lies we tell ourselves about our worth and our destiny. As Jesus moves through this realm, he gathers the souls who have waited in longing. He speaks words of life into the silence, and the darkness begins to tremble. The gates that once seemed unbreakable start to crack. The rulers of the underworld, those ancient forces of despair and oblivion, are confronted not with violence, but with a love that refuses to let go. The underworld is not destroyed, but transformed. Where there was only shadow, now there is the promise of dawn. But the story does not end here. The journey through the underworld is also a journey through the human heart. Each of us knows what it is to face darkness, to feel lost or forgotten, to wonder if hope is just a story we tell ourselves. The descent of Jesus is not just his story, it is the story of every soul that has ever longed for redemption, every heart that has ever dared to hope for more. In the quiet moments when the world is still and the questions press in, this story invites you to look deeper, to see in the descent not a tale of defeat, but of unimaginable courage, to recognize in the darkness the seeds of new life, to believe that even in the deepest night there is a light that cannot be overcome. And so the journey continues. The underworld is not the end, but the beginning of transformation. The chains are broken, the gates are open, and the way home is made clear. The story of the 3 days is a story of hope, hope that reaches into every shadow, every sorrow, and promises that no one is ever truly lost. This is the heart of the mystery. This is the invitation to follow, to hope, to believe that the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The journey through the depths continues, and with every step the darkness reveals more than just fear. It reveals possibility. Imagine the hush, the anticipation, as the souls of the underworld sense something different moving among them. For ages they have waited in silence, weighed down by regrets, unfinished stories, and the ache of separation from the light. But now a presence moves through their midst, gentle and unyielding, carrying a promise that even here, in the place of lost hopes, love can find a way. Jesus walks among the waiting souls, not as a stranger, but as one who knows their pain intimately. He speaks not in thunder or command, but in words that reach the heart. Words of forgiveness, of release, of homecoming. The souls listen, and for the first time in what feels like eternity, they begin to remember who they are. Not just echoes, but beloved. Not just forgotten, but found. The rulers of this shadowed realm, the ancient powers that have fed on despair and kept hope chained, sense the change. They try to resist, to hold on to their fading authority. But the light that Jesus brings is not something that can be bargained with or extinguished. It is gentle, but it is also relentless. It seeps into every corner, illuminating truths that have long been hidden. That no sorrow is too deep, no mistake too great, no distance too far for love to reach. As the gates of the underworld begin to yield, there is a trembling, a sense that the very fabric of reality is being rewritten. The souls who had given up hope now find themselves drawn to the light, their burdens lifted, their stories redeemed. The chains fall away, not with a clatter, but with a quiet finality, as if they were never meant to exist at all. This moment is more than a rescue. It is a revolution. The descent was not a defeat, but a daring act of love that rewrites the rules. The underworld, once a place of endings, becomes a place of new beginnings. The darkness, once absolute, is now filled with the promise of dawn. And as Jesus leads the souls out of the shadows, the story echoes far beyond the boundaries of death and time. It speaks to every heart that has ever felt trapped, every person who has ever wondered if there is a way back from the mistakes and losses of life. It whispers that the journey through darkness is not the end, but a passage to a life more whole, more honest, more filled with hope than ever before. The stone is rolled away, the tomb is empty. The story that began in darkness ends in light, and that light reaches out even now to everyone willing to believe that no night lasts forever. This is the invitation to trust that love is stronger than death, that hope is never wasted, and that every story, no matter how lost, can find its way home. The journey through the underworld is not just Jesus' story. It is the story of all who dare to hope, to seek, and to rise again. As the light grows, the underworld itself seems to change. What once felt like a prison now feels like a place of passage, a threshold between sorrow and joy, between what was and what could be. The souls, once weighed down by centuries of waiting, begin to move, slowly at first, then with growing confidence, toward the voice that calls them by name. They are not just being rescued, they are being restored, their dignity and dreams returned to them, their stories honored and made whole. You can almost sense the hush, the awe, as the impossible unfolds. For so long, despair had seemed like the final word, the end of every story. But now hope is rising, fragile yet unstoppable. The darkness is not erased, but it is transformed. It becomes the backdrop against which the light shines even brighter, the canvas for a new creation. Jesus leads the way, not as a distant savior, but as a companion, a friend who has walked the hardest road and come back for those left behind. He does not hurry them or judge their hesitation. He simply waits, patient and kind, until each soul is ready to step forward into the dawn. There is no shame here, no condemnation, only the gentle invitation to begin again. Outside, the world is waking up. The first rays of morning touch the earth, and the news begins to spread. The tomb is empty. At first there is confusion, disbelief. How could this be? But soon, the truth becomes undeniable. The one who was lost to death has returned, not just alive but changed, radiant with a peace and power that cannot be contained. For those who loved him, the joy is overwhelming. Grief gives way to wonder, and tears of sorrow become tears of gratitude. They realize that the story is bigger than they ever imagined. It is not just about one man's victory over death, but about the possibility of new life for everyone. The message is clear. No one is too lost, no night too long, no wound too deep for love to heal. And so the story echoes through the ages. It is the story of descent and return, of darkness and light, of hope that refuses to die. It is a story that invites each of us to believe that no matter how deep the shadows, there is always a way home. It asks us to trust that our own journeys through darkness are not wasted, but a part of a greater transformation, a movement from fear to courage, from despair to hope, from death to life. This is the promise at the heart of the story, that the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness will never overcome it. That every ending can become a new beginning. That in the deepest places of our pain and longing, we are never alone. The journey through the underworld is the journey of every soul, yours, mine, all of us, called out of darkness and into the light of a love that never lets go. And as the sun rises, as the world awakens to the miracle of hope restored, the story continues, inviting us to live with courage, to love without fear, and to believe always in the promise of new life. The world outside is forever changed, though at first only a few truly understand what has happened. The story of those 3 days, of the journey through darkness and the return to light, spreads quietly at first, whispered among friends, shared in hushed voices around tables and firesides. But the power of the story is impossible to contain. It grows not just as a tale of one man's victory, but as a living hope that stirs hearts everywhere. People begin to see themselves in the story. They recognize their own moments of darkness, the times when grief seemed endless, when mistakes felt unforgivable, when hope was just a distant memory. They see, too, the possibility of redemption, of second chances, of love that seeks them out, no matter how far they've wandered. The journey through the underworld is not just ancient history. It is a mirror held up to every soul that has ever longed for more. Communities gather, drawn together by this new hope. They share their burdens and their dreams, finding comfort in the knowledge that they are not alone. The story gives them language for their pain and courage for their future. It teaches them that to descend is not to be lost, but to be found in a deeper way. That the darkness is not the enemy, but the place where transformation begins. As the years pass, the story is told and retold, woven into songs and prayers, painted on walls and whispered in the quiet of the night. It becomes a source of strength. In times of trial, a light that refuses to be snuffed out by the storms of life. For some, it is a call to action, to reach out to the lonely, to comfort the grieving, to stand with those who feel trapped by their circumstances. For others, it is a quiet assurance that even in the hardest moments they are being led toward the dawn. And always at the heart of the story is the figure who walked through the darkness and returned with the keys of hope. His journey is not just a promise for the future, but a presence in the present, a reminder that love is stronger than fear, that life is stronger than death, that light is stronger than any shadow. So the story continues, not just in words, but in lives changed by its truth. It lives in every act of kindness, every moment of forgiveness, every step taken toward healing and wholeness. It is the story of a world made new, one heart at a time, as each person dares to believe that the journey through darkness can lead to a sunrise brighter than any before. And as you listen to this story, as you let it settle into your own heart, perhaps you find yourself wondering, what darkness have I known? What hope have I longed for? What new beginning might be waiting for me just beyond the next horizon? The invitation is always there, to step forward, to trust the light, to become part of the story that never ends. And so the story moves forward, winding its way into the quiet places of everyday life. It becomes the gentle encouragement that whispers in moments of doubt, the steady reassurance that even when you feel lost, you are not abandoned. It's there in the laughter that follows tears, in the embrace after a long separation, in the courage it takes to try again after failure. This story, born in darkness and crowned by light, is woven into the fabric of what it means to be human. People begin to realize that the journey through the underworld is not just a single event in history, but a pattern that repeats in countless lives. There are seasons when the world feels cold and silent, when prayers seem to echo unanswered, when the weight of the past feels too heavy to bear. But the story reminds them that these seasons are not the end. They are the soil in which hope takes root the night before the dawn. In the quiet of the early morning, as the first light breaks across the horizon, you can almost feel the promise of the story settling over the world like a gentle blessing. It is a promise that no matter how deep the darkness, the light will always find a way. That every loss can be met with comfort, every sorrow with compassion, every ending with a new beginning. Communities grow stronger as they share this hope. They learn to listen more deeply, to forgive more freely, to reach out to those who are hurting. The story teaches them to look for the sacred in the ordinary, the miracle in a shared meal, the grace in a helping hand, the beauty in a second chance. It invites them to see every person as a fellow traveler on the journey, every life as a story worth telling, every heart as a place where resurrection is possible. And in your own heart, the story stirs something quiet but powerful. Maybe it's a memory of a time you thought you couldn't go on, but somehow found the strength to rise. Maybe it's a hope you've carried, fragile but unbroken, through seasons of disappointment and loss. Or maybe it's simply the longing to believe that love really is stronger than fear, that light really does win in the end. The journey that began in darkness is still unfolding, still inviting, still calling each of us to trust that no night lasts forever. The stone is still being rolled away, the gates are still opening, and the invitation to new life is always being offered. So as you step into the day, carry this story with you. Let it remind you that you are never alone, that your struggles are seen, that your hope matters. Let it inspire you to be a bearer of light in a world that sometimes forgets how to hope. And know deep in your bones that the story of descent and return, of darkness and dawn, is not just a tale from long ago. It is the living truth that shapes your life and the lives of all who dare to believe.